Hey everybody, welcome to Krista's So Crafty. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm getting my canner out and I have a pot of raspberries and we are going to make some raspberry jam. So stick around and I'll show you how I do it. So first of all, I wanted to say I have my raspberries in a stainless steel pot that has a heavy bottom. You don't want a pot that's a real thin bottom, otherwise you could have a chance of your jam or jelly scalding or burning, and that is not what you want. So in here, like I said, I've got my 5 cups of my prepared juice. I'm going to put in, one thing I didn't mention is I'm going to put in about ½ teaspoon of butter or margarine you can use. I'm using butter. And I'm going to put in my pectin. Okay, so I'm going to put in this whole package of pectin. Just going to spread it all around. Make sure to get it all out of there. And now I'm just going to stir this all up. Make sure that everything gets all combined. I've got my burner turned on to about a medium-high right now. So what I'm doing is I want to get this all mixed up together, and then I'm just going to continue stirring it and bring it to a rolling boil. Okay, so get that butter melted. Now you don't want to turn your pot on high because that's just too intense of a heat and you'll have a chance that you could burn or scald your raspberries. So don't do that. Just put it on about a medium high. So I've got mine on between 7 and 8, around 8, and that should be enough of a heat to get this to a full rolling boil. I just wanted to pop back on here real quick while this is still coming up to that boil that I was telling you about. For somebody that doesn't know, a full rolling boil is something where when it starts to boil and you put your spoon in and you stir it and you can't make it stop. That is what a full rolling boil is. Just scraping the edges. We don't want to lose any of our wonderful raspberries or the juice. And it's starting to steam quite a bit, so it's not going to be too much longer before it starts to boil. So now, as you can see, it's just coming up to a boil, but I can run my spoon through there. Oh, see, it's pretty close. I'm going to let this go for probably another 30 seconds or more, and then we're going to add our sugar. You just want this to be at a full rolling boil. I always have trouble saying that word. I don't know why. A rolling boil. It smells so good in here. Very fresh. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but I have an apron on. The reason being is because this can get very messy, especially when this starts spitting. Making a bit of a mess on my stove, but it can be cleaned up. There we go. See how now when I run my spoon through there, it's not stopping? So now it's ready to put our sugar in. So I have all my sugar measured out. I'm going to dump about half in there and just kind of mix that around a bit, and then I'll mix in the other half. Now we want to mix in that sugar, let it all get dissolved. And once this is all dissolved, we want to bring this back up to that boil again. And we're going to let that, once it's at a full boil that we can't stop, that we can't stir down, then we are going to let it boil for 1 minute, and then our jam will be all done, and we can start jarring it up. Looking so yummy. So I think the sugar is pretty much all dissolved. You can see it's getting a beautiful red color from all those raspberries. Now that butter we put in there stops the foam from building. So as you see, there's not a whole bunch of foam on the top of this pot, which is great. But if there is some, we'll just take a metal spoon and skim it off. Not a big deal, but this having that little bit of butter definitely helps to stop that from happening. Love the smell of raspberries. There, see, it's starting to bubble, starting to boil. I will bring you back when we're at a full boiling boil, and we'll go from there. Okay, we are just about at that point where we're going to start timing. So I'm just giving this another stir, and as you can see, I can't stir down the bubbles, so I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute, and we'll let that boil. And then our jam is ready to be canned. So you see there's a little bit of foam building up now. That's okay. That's not a problem at all. It will either dissipate in the jam or jelly before we can it, or we'll take a metal spoon, like I said before, and we will just skim that off. Such a beautiful, beautiful deep dark red color. Remember to keep stirring at this point. You don't want to have it scald or scorch on the bottom right now. You're on the home stretch right now. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off the heat. I have an electric stove, so if you had a gas stove, it'd be a lot easier. I'm just going to take it off the stove so that it stops the boiling. And now we're going to start canning it. All right, so here we have our raspberry jam. Looks absolutely wonderful. It's very, very hot. Be very careful. This is like molten lava. You do not want to get this on you. It will burn. Now I'm going to check my jam. And you'll notice that it's really slowing down. I don't know if you can see because it's red on red there, but yeah, this is going to be good. Okay, so now what I have set up here is I have just a cutting board, just to help contain stuff. I have my lids and my rings here, and I'm going to use my little metal catcher to pull them out. I have my jar lifters, so I'm going to get a jar, and I have them in my canner. You want your jars to be nice and hot. You don't want to put hot liquid into a cold jar. It's a real good way to bust a jar. I'm going to put my funnel on here, and I'm going to fill these jars to within 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch headspace. So what that means is when you get enough jam or jelly in your jar that there's about 1/4 of an inch left, then you know you've done it right. So right there I've got 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch. So now this is where I'm going to take my paper towel and my vinegar, and I'm just going to dunk it on here, and I'm going to clean that lip. You want to make sure that you get all the sugar off of that. Now I'm going to reach in here and get a lid, which is very hot, and I'm going to center it on my jar, and I'm going to get a ring, which is very hot as well, and I'm just going to take my ring and I'm just going to spin it on so until you get to the resistance, And this is where you're going to want a cloth because this jar is going to be hot. And then you just want to finger tight it. Then I'm going to take my jar lifter and I'm going to take my jam and I'm going to put it back into the canner. Now at this point, I've turned my canner back up to high so it can start boiling. And I'm just going to get another jar, dump out all the water, and just repeat the process. Now another thing is when I went and pulled these jars out of my storage, what I did is I took, when I was washing them, I was taking my finger and I went around the rim of the top of the jar just to make sure that there was no cracks or chips in it. You don't want any cracks or chips when you're making jam and jelly. You want that to be a nice smooth area all the way around. So again, I'm just going to dunk in some vinegar, give this quick wipe. When you use the funnel like that, for the most part, you're not going to get any jam or jelly on there, but if you do, just make sure you're wiping it off so that it's nice and clean. So again, just got it till it had a little resistance and then just give it a little spin. Again, don't make it real tight. Okay, you need that air to come out when you're processing this. And I'm just going to continue on. Alright, I have all my jelly jam, I don't know why I keep saying jelly, in the canner. I am going to use some oven mitts to lower this down. As you can see, I have 3, 6, 7, 8 half pints. So I'm going to lower these in. The one thing you want to really watch for when you're canning, or water canning, is that you have an inch of water above the jars. Put the lid on, and I'm just going to let this warm up, boil another second or two, and then I'm going to let it boil for 5 minutes. Now, so at my elevation, I'm only going to water bath can this for 5 minutes. Make sure you're checking to see what your altitude is, and then on the canning guide there is a guide that tells you depending on what your altitude is. So I am at just under 1,000, so I bath can this for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, I'm going to set the timer. And I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. All right, so we are back. My timer went off. What I did is I just pulled the canner off of the heat. Again, I have an electric stove, so it stays hot for a while. If you just have a gas stove, you can just shut your heat off. I'm going to take the lid off. Be very careful. It's very hot. And I'm going to reach in here, probably burn my fingers. I need to get some silicone gloves because you don't want to be sticking your hands in that water. It's very hot. So I'm just going to carefully lift this up. And I'm going to start pulling these out. Now, as a canner, someone who does canning, what we want, look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? Probably can't see it very well. I have terrible lighting in my kitchen. Let me see if this will help. Oh, did you hear that? That snap. That's what we want to hear. So I'm just going to take these out of the, oh, snap, snap, snap. And I'm just going around and I'm kind of taking them off from either side. And we'll just lift these out. You want to make sure to leave space in between your jars so that they can cool. And you don't want to be tapping them or banging on them. Oh, snap, snap, snap. Gotta love that. Now, I don't know if you can see on the top of my jars. Yes, I think you can. I have like a white deposit. If that happens, don't worry. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so there are my 8 half pints, 250 milliliter jars of jam. And I'll just bring one up here so you can have a closer look. So good, looks so good. My husband loves raspberry jam, so I know he's gonna be very happy that I made this. And I wanted to show you. So I got the 8 pints, 250 milliliters, as well as a little bit left. So I'm just gonna put this in the fridge, put a lid on it, put it in the fridge. I have this little bit here that we're gonna put in the fridge, but I just wanted to show you how beautiful that is. I just think it's so nice. And it's very tasty. There's my Tux. He's grown a lot. I don't know if you guys have seen him in other videos, but that's my Tux. Yes, he's very hard day. He's yawning. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This raspberry jam tastes so wonderful, and I am going to be so happy to put this on my pantry shelf. So thank you again for joining me, and happy crafting.